But why did the British and French governments appease Hitler? Why did they allow him to build a European Nazi empire without serious opposition? The most fundamental reason is that in the interwar years, Britain was past its peak as a great power and was fearful of the economic damage that another war might cause. Importantly, it was also terrified of losing its empire, which was now even more extensive than it had been under Queen Victoria. Germany was a rising power. To the majority of British politicians, it seemed as if the best way to hang on to what they had was to appease Hitler. Moreover, there was considerable sympathy for the Nazis among Britain's rulers, and it came right from the top.
God save the King!
King Edward VIII was a supporter of appeasement and an admirer of Hitler. After his abdication in 1936, a result of his decision to marry an American divorcee, he and his new wife visited Hitler. During the widely publicised visit, Edward gave full Nazi salutes. Hitler was certainly saddened by Edward's abdication. He said, if he had stayed, everything would have been different. His abdication was a severe loss to us. But pro-Nazi sympathies ran much more widely among Britain's rulers. The Cliveden set, so called because they met at Cliveden, the home of Tory MP Lady Nancy Astor, were famously pro-Nazi. The set included Foreign Secretary Lord Halifax and the editor of The Times, Geoffrey Dawson. While Dawson edited The Times, journalists were forbidden to make any mention of anti-Semitism in Hitler's Germany. Labour MP Hugh Dalton accused the wealthy of the city, the Tories and members of the peerage of being the main supporters of appeasement. In 1940, Michael Foot, the future leader of the Labour Party, and two other journalists, Frank Owen and Peter Howard, issued a pamphlet called Guilty Men under the pen name Cato. It called for the resignation of 15 public figures, including Chamberlain and his predecessor, Stanley Baldwin. W.H. Smith and other major wholesalers refused to distribute the book, and it was sold from newsstands and barrows in the street. But it sold more than 200,000 copies in a few weeks. Appeasement was dead for the majority of people in Britain. There was one notable opponent of appeasement among the British elite, Winston Churchill. The Churchill myth is now so powerful that it's hard to recall how he appeared to his contemporaries. But the truth is that Churchill was a maverick, even among the elite. Although he'd been at the forefront of politics for decades, he was far from popular. Many working-class families remembered him as a hard-line Home Secretary that had deployed soldiers who had shot at striking miners in Tonopandi, South Wales, in 1911. Even among his own class, he was remembered for his advocacy of the Gallipoli campaign during the First World War, a disaster which cost him his job as First Lord of the Admiralty. His decision to set the value of the pound at that of gold, the gold standard, in 1925 seriously weakened the economy and contributed to the causes of the general strike a year later. Churchill was an unashamed champion of the British Empire, and it was this unreconstructed nationalism that brought him to see more clearly than others the threat that Hitler posed to British interests as he understood them. From this lonely position, Churchill opposed appeasement and correctly predicted that Munich would lead to war. Churchill replaced Neville Chamberlain as Prime Minister in 1940. He was practically the last card that a disgraced political elite had left to play. But appeasement had already done its worst.